Imagine a peaceful country, famous for gorgeous mountains and classical music, suddenly stepping out of the shadows to say its oldest, most defining rule simply doesn't apply anymore. In a Europe that's already on edge, one of the continent's most recognizable neutral states making this call, it changes absolutely everything.
So what if Austria actually abandons military neutrality? In this explainer, we're jumping right into that exact scenario to figure out what happens when a nation, one that's been a stable bridge for decades, decides neutrality just isn't enough to keep it safe anymore. We're not just looking at defense budgets here. We're diving deep into identity, survival, and geopolitics when a peaceful image collides with a rapidly changing world.
Section 1. The domestic shock wave. You see, the immediate reaction inside Austria wouldn't just be some dry policy update. It would be a total existential shock to the system. Austrian neutrality isn't just ink on paper. It's a historic identity. It's literally the foundation of Austrian statecraft. Abandoning it means closing a massive chapter of their national story to blindly open another, completely shifting how the country handles alliances and regional conflicts.
And this would instantly spark a highly emotional public debate. On one side, you've got this strong push for modernization and resilience. The argument is that the world has changed, and Austria absolutely has to adapt to survive modern cyber threats and hybrid warfare. But on the flip side, there's a profound fear of losing tradition. Many worry that ditching neutrality is a dangerous break from a past that gave the country immense diplomatic credibility.
Removing that trusted anchor forces everyday citizens to rethink their country's identity from the ground up. It's a massive national conversation that splits the public, not just on military strategy, but on how Austrians fundamentally view themselves. Section 2. Europe's geopolitical earthquake. Because Austria sits right in the strategic heart of Central Europe, its neighbors and alliances like NATO and the EU would immediately start running some frantic calculations. Everyone in Brussels would be asking, are they moving toward formal defense partnerships? Seeking bilateral guarantees? Stepping into a broader alliance framework? Literally every single possible answer fundamentally alters the balance of power on the continent. For Europe that's already dealing with a lot of uncertainty, the overarching message here is loud and clear. The old assumptions about stable, neutral buffers are fading fast. The strategic game is fundamentally changed, and if a historically neutral state like Austria is stepping into the fray, it signals that nobody is just sitting on the sidelines anymore. But beyond the troops and the hardware, there is a massive shift in continental symbolism and soft power. Vienna has historically carried immense weight as a hub for diplomacy, negotiation, and moderation. Losing that neutral symbolism totally alters Austria's mental space in the European imagination. It really forces the world to ask if the age of the stable neutral is permanently over. Section 3. Rethinking military and economics. Now, a shift like this absolutely wouldn't happen overnight. It requires a massive multi-year rollout. Step 1 is a drastic overhaul of procurement and budgets, especially for things like cyber defense and updated infrastructure. Step 2 means entirely transforming training and manpower, like building up reserve systems. And Step 3? That requires deep integration into wider European intelligence sharing and partner coordination. A robust, visible defense framework basically has to be built from the ground up. Economically speaking, international investors would be watching this transition like a hawk. Markets crave predictable institutions, right? So if the transition is well managed and incredibly clear, it actually strengthens confidence because investors love stability. But if the shift is divided, tense, or confusing, it generates serious caution and volatility, which could definitely shift Austria's long-term political risk profile. And beyond the budgets and the markets, leaders would have to carefully manage the profound psychological effect on ordinary citizens. For decades, neutrality has created this comforting sense of distance from danger. Suddenly, citizens might feel significantly less protected without that psychological shield. Leaders would have a really tough job reassuring the public that redefining peace doesn't just mean inviting conflict.
Section 4. The point of no return.
You see, this isn't just a policy you can switch off and on. It carries profound, irreversible philosophical weight for Austria's future generations. Once a country changes its strategic identity, the old path does not fully return. Even if a future government tries to soften the military stance or pull back later on, that symbolic line has permanently been crossed. The very story the nation tells about itself will be fundamentally and permanently changed. On a highly practical level, this leads to an entirely new set of civil defense responsibilities.
the state faces an incredibly delicate balancing act. They have to prepare citizens for a more uncertain environment, things like updating emergency preparedness and border resilience, but they have to do it with absolute clarity to build confidence without inciting societal fear or mass hysteria.
And this reveals the ultimate paradox of security politics. What one state does to feel safer can actually make the whole region feel more alert. It's fascinating, right? Abandoning neutrality to gain safety and deterrence can actually make the entire European map feel more crowded, more heavily allied, and significantly more tense.
So we leave you with this final, overarching thought to ponder. Is neutrality a timeless principle, or simply a historical phase that has finally reached its limit? Can a nation change its identity to match a modern, dangerous world without losing the very soul of what made it so valuable as a peacemaker in the first place? It's a massive question. Thanks for diving into this explainer with us, and we'll see you next time.